Okay. Hello, everyone. I'd like to call the Ansonia Board of Aldermen meeting for April 11th to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
liberty and justice
for all.
Beautiful as always.
Thank you, Josh.
All right. Can we get a roll call, Trish?
Yes, aldermen and women. King,
Here.
Stowe, Adamowski,
Here.
Carr,
Here.
Cassetti, Janetti,
Here.
Knott,
Here.
Yauman,
Here.
Rivers, Mamone,
Here.
Stewart,
Here.
Blackwell, DeLibero. 8 present.
All right, I declare a
Yeah.
quorum. All right, so we had 7, I think, right?
Yep, you have 8.
Oh, either way, still a quorum. So minutes for approval, we had a few listed. The March 8th, we had 2 meetings, and March 14th.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Mamone and Not. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
I'm going to
opposed?
abstain from the March 8th. Josh, I wasn't present, I don't believe.
Okay, we should have separated those out, but so the March 8th, 1 abstention, and anyone abstaining from the March 14? All right, so all in favor otherwise?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so unanimous for March 14, and then the March 8th meetings, 1 abstention, Yaman. All right, public session. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak tonight? As a reminder, try to keep your comments 3 minutes or less. Please identify yourself for the public record. Does anyone from the public wish to speak tonight? Raise your hand or just start talking. Looking around. Anybody? Second call for public session. And third and final call for the public session. All right. Close the public session. No comments. And we'll move on to the public official session. Mayor Cassetti.
Good evening, President Sheward, members of the Board of Aldermen and residents of the great city of Ansonia. Tonight, we look forward to warmer weather and a hot summer for activity and progress in our community. Let's take a look at some things to come. First, our new senior center is targeting a May opening date. I've been monitoring the progress, and let me tell you, you're going to be amazed by the commercial kitchen, dining area, and the incredible space for activities and events, and everything being prepared by our new senior director, Christine Sansini. The assistant director, Jeff Capola. This is a tremendous win for our seniors, and I can't wait for you to check it out. Next, the long-awaited splash pad and firefighter-themed playground at Nolan Field is scheduled to complete installation by Memorial Day. We are waiting on consistent weather to complete the install, which looks to be just around the corner. Coming soon at the Ansonia Library is the new teen room. Fun teen room in downtown is being recharged as promised. Look forward to more downtown improvements. Work this spring will begin in a grant-funded project at West Main and Main Street. This will include pedestrian safety improvements and making a safer connection to the Ansonia train station. Then we have our State Street project, which is currently under design based on the comments received at our public hearing. Look for work to begin into the fall. Also, we will continue to see private development all around the city, from new apartments on Main Street, including the continued redevelopment of the old Farrell Processing Lab, which will bring in 200 new residential units to Main Street. I likely don't have to remind you about the multi-sports complex being constructed at Olson Drive, but also look out for news on the rehabilitation of our animal shelter very soon. But there's even more big news. We have been awarded an additional $500,000 to continue the demolition of copper and brass site, to continue clearing space for new jobs and economic opportunities. Look for continued demolition activities to occur over the summer. But maybe you want to enjoy some events. This spring and summer, grab a pencil for these dates. Earth Day at the Nature Center, Saturday, April 22nd from 10 to 3 to honor Mother Earth with our friends at the Ansonia Nature Center. Co-host this annual event. Enjoy hikes, live animals, environmental exhibitors, a farmer's market, music, and more. The National Day of Prayer returns on May 4th, thanks to Ansonia residents Pat and Larry Bummels and their entire team for continuing this tradition. And a friendly ghost returned to the Ansonia Armory in Paracom 3, May 13th and 14th at the Ansonia Armory. The Relay for Life and a day of family fun hit Nolan Field on June 3rd. And the Coleman Brothers Carnival comes to Ansonia from June 27th till July 9th. And I'm really hoping to have fireworks on the last day. I'm working on that. And Rock the Valley returns on August 26th. Now, I'll let my staff fill you in on some details. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Mayor. Next up, Corporation Counsel John Marini.
Mr. President, members of the board, good afternoon. To follow up on the mayor, who gave a great rundown of a lot of the progress and a lot of the results we're seeing in the city, I want to talk about another project that he didn't hit on, the Ansonia Opera House. And it's one that tends to get a good amount of attention every time we bring it up. And that's thanks in part, of course, to our very active Ansonia Opera House committee. I believe Anthony Mullen is on the line. He's been very heavily involved with that since before we even had an Opera House project. So big thanks to the committee putting a spotlight on this project. And of course, a reminder for those who may be, outside of the Board of Aldermen, this is a long-term project where the city has worked with its owner, Walt Konjerski, to create a long-term 30-year lease in the hopes of restoring both the exterior and interior of this space. And I'm very happy to say that we've made some great progress preparing plans for that first phase. Sheila will tell you about an application that we just submitted for a feasibility study. And of course, as many studies are, it's not just an opportunity to learn more, but to unlock the door for more funding opportunities. Perhaps just as significant, we have learned from SHPO, which is the state's Historic Preservation Department, that this project will be eligible, counting towards some of the mitigation that our city needs to do for the knockdown of SHW and copper and brass buildings. And it's not a concept we've brought up much, but believe it or not, when you bring down buildings, the state historic preservation gets involved. And even when it seems to be these buildings are sort of, in bad disrepair and blighted and need to be torn down, sometimes their historic significance triggers the state to get involved and to make sure that we're still investing in other historic properties in the general area as a sort of way to mitigate, to lessen the impact of taking down the city's history. Well, the Opera House is, of course, very well positioned, very close to the demolition site, and they see it as a great way to continue to invest in historic Ansonia's history as we bring down buildings at the industrial site. So that means not only is this project going to count for what we originally intended it to be months ago when it was approved, it's also going to help with, believe it or not, the demolition project itself. So big thanks to this board for moving forward on this project. Big thanks to the owner, Walt Konjerski, for protecting it for so long and allowing us to move forward. And of course, to our Opera House Committee for keeping the spotlight on this project. Other than that, I could take any questions. We have a kind of light agenda for tonight. Any questions?
Any questions from the Aldermen for Corporation Council tonight? All right, moving on. Economic Development, Sheila O'Malley.
Thank you, President Stewart, members of the Board of Aldermen. Mayor covered some of the projects that are ongoing, but we've got quite a bit. Try to keep track of it all. We recently had a visit with the State Department of Economic and Community Development and the Deputy Commissioner. They're very much interested in Ansonia Copper and Brass and SHW. They have expressed their support, their funding resources they're bringing to the table, and it was a very encouraging conversation John, the mayor, and I had with them. So hopefully we'll continue to get the necessary funding to level those parcels. But for a few exceptions, but we have a CMAC project that's going to get underway this spring and summer, which is a pedestrian enhancement project that will connect Maine to West Maine. And I'll be going over the details of that. It includes aesthetic improvements, crosswalks, curbs, trying to make that train station area more appealing and the connection to the train station. And should have some news on the improvements that are going to be made to the train station in the upcoming days, with a site plan ready from DOT and Office of Rails. State Street, we did have a good public hearing thanks to Alderman Adamowski and Alderwoman Tar, as well as all those who attended. Good comments, want to keep the project moving as quickly as possible. We have completed a site map, a plan and a map that sort of lays out parcels on Ansonia Copper and Brass and SHW, which I will be showing this board shortly. But it kind of envisions, an industrial park with the parcels laid out. It's only a draft. It came out of our master development plan, but it's good to be able to actually visualize manufacturers and commerce in there. So the goal, of course, Mayor Cassetti's goal is to increase number of jobs and tax revenue for the city of Ansonia. So four major grant opportunities coming our way. We are going to take advantage of every one of them. A lot of good ideas about access roads for our parcels, maybe a parking deck, a pocket park. So we will, I will be updating you as we move forward. And then the Opera House, I'm looking for your support for a resolution. John mentioned all the good things happening with our committee and that building. This is just a process with the state. If you're accessing state funds, you're going to start with a feasibility study. And if you don't start with a feasibility study, then you're not accessing funding. So that's the first step. That's what we're going to do. And hopefully you'll approve that resolution. And I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And we'll take up that resolution later. Any questions for Economic Development tonight from the Aldermen? Yes. Go ahead, Bob.
Hey, Bobby.
Hi, Sheila. Do we have anybody interested in the former Big Y parcel yet? I mean, we keep talking about Main Street and West Main, and that's right at the end of West Main.
It's a key location. It's a priority project. It's privately held. We talk to the owner frequently. He comes in, we talk to him on the phone. He's been working with two major players for that space, and he updates us and asks us for additional support letters, et cetera. We just sent one in about a month ago. So we're hoping to hear from him. And I don't know if John wants to add anything to that.
I mean, I think that we hear this question a lot, right? Because so many things happening in the city, but the one obvious thing where there hasn't been news has been Big Y. And I think it's important, number one, to remember that there was a little bit of a reason why I believe that didn't move forward quickly after Big Y left. That is that Big Y was paying their lease out. But I want to let everyone know that we have been in discussions with Alan Schwartz, who represents the company that owns the plaza, continuously since Big Y left, not only on the phone with conference calls, but also having him down at City Hall multiple times to discuss in depth what his plans are, to push forward our hope and our need to see the site redeveloped. And I guess the bottom line is that he has articulated to us that he wants to hold out for a premium tenant. And why we really can't put names out there, he, essentially wants a tenant that will be as good as, if not better than Big Y. He does not want to see that parcel go the way of, well, apartments, right? Which could be a possibility in other towns and other cities. You're seeing mall spaces and larger spaces being cut up into apartments. He doesn't want to see it go to what he would consider a less than quality tenant. That interest is always out there, but he wants to hold out for something that's going to bring a good, solid economic impact to the city and really replace Big Y. He explains to us that because of the market, because of everything with COVID, that some of these larger chains are just a little reluctant, they're a little shy to be expanding, especially in an area, like ours that is a little off of the beaten path. I think everything this board and everything the city has been doing to attract attention and investment to the city, however, is showing that this is a place to put your money. This is a place to expand. And we really believe it's just a matter of time that he's able to seal the deal. He likely is also going to be coming to this board with plans to improve and expand that plaza in order to make room for such a premium tenant. So, this board should definitely be ready when the time comes to be talking about how the city may be able to assist this important landowner in making substantial improvements, going to move the city forward and the economy forward. But unfortunately, right, it's a waiting game. We are not the owner. There's only so much we can do, but we will continue to bug and pester him as much as possible. We want to know just as much as you do, when are we going to get the replacement for Big Y? But it's a matter of when, it will happen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just wanted to make sure it didn't turn into a Tri-Town Plaza situation.
Of course, exactly. That's always our fear is, seeing a property sit around stagnant. That's not what we need in the city. So I'm, completely on board with what you're saying.
Thank you.
Was there another question for
Yes.
Sheila?
Yes.
Yes. Sheila, I had a question regarding the American Brass project. So I think the last time you reported on this, if I understood it correctly, the next step was going to be the replacement of the bridge so that it could hold heavy trucks related to the demolition. Tonight, you alluded to some demolition that might occur before the bridge. Can you clarify that?
Yeah, as John mentioned, we were fortunate enough to get another $500,000 to continue pushing forward on the SHW site with more demolition located on that site. And then the first step at Ansonia Copper and Brass is going to be the bridge replacement.
Okay, so
You're right. And it may happen concurrently, but I think it takes a while. It'll take a while for us to tap into those funds for the bridge.
So the additional 500,000 is to complete the SHW demolition.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for economic development?
Thank you, President Stewart, for attending the public hearing as well on State Street. Sorry, I missed you on that one. where's Chicago with the questions? No Chicago.
You lucked out. Actually, Chief Williams lucked out because he usually has 2 or 3 for him. All right, moving on. Chief Financial Officer, Fiscal Officer, Kurt Miller.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. Just a quick report tonight because my life for the last 6 weeks has mostly been the budget. So we are on target for our April 27th presentation of Mayor Cassetti's budget. We're kind of putting together the final pieces of that now, and we expect to have everything ready to go. Unfortunately, there's still 1 or 2 areas that we will not have exact numbers on. It's just kind of the nature of things, particularly on the insurance side. A lot of the insurers are deciding that they want to wait as long as they possibly can. So we'll have good, strong estimates in, but just understand that those numbers could change a bit during the process. The ARPA audit is completed. We were able to actually get that done the second day in which the portal opened. So I just want to give some credit to my staff. They've been doing an exceptional job of keeping all the information extremely organized. They actually built me a spreadsheet based on the way the reporting needs to be done. So I was able just to go right into the portal, dump all the information that we have and move that along. So something that took, I believe it was 2 weeks last year, I was able to get done in an afternoon because of their organization and diligence. So I just want to publicly thank them for that. Audit is done and completed. We talked about that a little bit last month, but again, very, very, very positive. And then on a final note, I know that you had asked for me to do some research with regards to the food waste program that we have. I'm about 90% done with all of that research. We received some information yesterday and then a bunch more this morning. I needed to kind of go back and forth with some of our vendors to make sure that I had all of our numbers correct. But I will have that report to President Schuer by the end of the month. So, excuse me, by the end of the week, I apologize. So he could pass that out to the rest of you for discussion. And then I think if we waited until the meeting in May, you can probably take action at that point if it's of interest to you. So with that, President Schuer, I'll turn it back to you and take any questions any members may have.
All right. First, any questions for Kurt? Okay, you also luck out. Since you mentioned it, can we just table that item
Hi.
and skip? I was going to take it up under old business. But we can just table that item. Can I get a motion for that? Somebody?
I'll make the motion to table it.
Second.
Table the MVCOG meeting. Yeah.
Motion from Tar, second by Mamone. Any discussion? All right, all in favor of tabling?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? All right, so we'll take that up next month. Thank you, Kurt. Next up, Police Chief Wayne Williams, already on camera, ready to roll.
Good evening, President Stewart and the rest of the board. I'll give you a quick update on our personnel because I know we've talked about that in the past. So we have 3 officers that are currently in our field training program. We also have 4 officers that are in our police academy in New Britain. We expect them to come out sometime just before the summer, and then they'll start their FTO program. We also have 1 sergeant position to be filled and 2 detective positions to be filled. So we're working on testing for those now. Detective Sergeant Sturgis has been sworn in. He is now running the Detective Bureau. We haven't had a detective sergeant for over a year. Lieutenant Froelich was doing triple duty there, so Detective Sergeant Sturgis has taken over. Contract negotiations with the police union is ongoing. I know John didn't touch on that, so I thought I'd throw that out there. I also want to let you know that we took possession of 2 solar-powered speed signs that were given to us as part of a state project. So I know we always have a lot of concerns about speeding in town. Those signs run about $5,000 a piece, and the state gave them to us. They're telling me with no strings attached, so I'm gonna take them at their word as of right now. I'm hoping to have them installed on a couple of streets by the end of the month. Those, especially streets we get a lot of complaints on. Police accountability bill, we are still headed towards our accreditation tier 1, which is a 3-tier program, but we're supposed to have our inspection in July, so we are still working on that. The garage is the construction of the garage is ongoing. Possible construction is working here daily, and they've been updating us weekly on how that's going. We're also prepping, along with the other events that were talked about, we're prepping for the Memorial Day Parade on May 28th. And we're starting to put together our plans for that. And then you may have also noticed that there have been a lot more motor vehicle stops taking place throughout the town. We received a couple of grants for radar, speed enforcement, and distracted driving grants, cell phone distracted driving grants. So we've been putting extra officers out working on those, and that's 100% being reimbursed by the state. So all the costs of that. So if you have any questions, I will try to answer them, but my normal questioners are not here tonight.
You might like it. Any questions from the Alderman for Chief Williams?
I'll be the honorary Chicago. So Chief saw in the news that we were able to, make, I believe, a second arrest for the incident that happened on Main Street. Just, cheers to you guys for following through on that. And, the comments online and everybody, just heck of a job. It was a awful, tragic thing that happened. And the fact that we could get some closure on some of this is fantastic. So thank you for your efforts and diligence on bringing that all the way through.
The detectives have not stopped working on that case and several other high profile cases that are still ongoing. So I appreciate it. I will pass the word, but yeah, that was definitely one of the cases they've put a lot of time into.
Thanks, Chief. Amazing work.
Any other questions for the chief?
Just a quick question. I was very encouraged, Chief, to hear about the speed recording machines. One of the issues that came up at the State Street public hearing was the inordinate amount of speeding, particularly where state meets North State. So I hope you'll include utilization plans in the north end, particularly in that area in the future.
Yeah, I will tell you that I don't usually see a lot of speeding complaints on State Street. Obviously, it's a small street, but North State Street, we definitely get complaints on Woodbridge Avenue, et cetera. So we've been spreading the officers out a couple hours at each place as they're going on. I'd be honest, tell you that we probably have gotten a complaint of speeding on almost every street in the city at this point.
Yeah,
Even some of them that are the dead ends, we get complaints. So it is definitely the #1 complaint that we hear of, both here at the police department, at the police commission meetings, et cetera. It is something that has actually become such a problem within the state. You're starting to see this is why they started issuing grants. These are ARPA money grants from the state to deal with rural road speed enforcement. They're handing out the speed survey signs. And if you watch the news, you're going to probably start seeing speed cameras where you get the mail tickets.
yes. Well,
Yeah,
thanks
great.
for doing what you can with the new resources.
We are. Thank you very much, sir.
Chief, I have one more. Kind of been reading some of this online, and I think Seymour already got hit, and I think Shelton as well with this. It seems like, I don't know if it's a car club or something like that, where there's large groups of cars, modified exhaust, just speeding through. Shelton got hit. There's donuts all over downtown Shelton, so they had kind of a field day down there. But I don't know, like what, being that we're so close to Route 8, it feels as though it's only time before this comes ripping through Ansonia. So do we have any plans for that when it occurs?
So I wish I could say that we haven't already been hit. So we have been.
Okay.
We've had it several times already. Usually what happens is they start somewhere down in the Stratford area and they work they work their way up Route 8. I know Naugatuck was dealing with it last weekend, Naugatuck, Southbury, et cetera. I will be honest and tell you that normally what each of the towns, especially small towns like ours, are doing is trying to funnel them out of town as fast as possible and put them up onto the highway. And then the state police funnel them off the highway into the towns. Because I'll be honest with you, it overwhelms the police departments pretty quickly.
I bet.
We have stopped some, we've towed some, we've arrested some. But dumping 400 or 500 of these cars into town at one time when I have 3 or 4 officers working, they do their best to just reroute them. There's been some videos online of them through Ansonia. So it is a problem that seems to be growing. The motor vehicle enforcement problem seems to be growing, the violations, etc. So we are aware of it. The local chiefs have had conversations about this. But it does, it happens rather quickly and it overwhelmed rather quickly. We immediately close off the Nolan Field lot early. If that's the case, so that they can't, because they're looking for the big parking lots. And I will tell you that Big Y is usually where they head to.
So is it just kind of they breeze in, breeze out kind of thing? They're not setting up shop per se. They're really just.
No, what happens is they try to go somewhere and hang out until the police department shows up and moves them along.
Okay.
That's usually what happens. So they were in town probably for 20-25 minutes the last time they were here. And it was really just a matter, we were blocking off a lot of roads as we were going, just trying to funnel them back up onto the highway.
Got it.
And the
Thanks,
towns
Chief.
and the police departments are communicating that to each other when it's happening, so that the next town knows that that they're coming.
Okay. Thank you. Stay safe.
Thanks, sir.
Chief, I just wanted to thank you. I know several months ago, I visited the police commission meeting regarding that you could go from Daniels Market down to Pulaski without stopping, and the fact that we have multiple schools, high schools, and I wanted to say that those signs are in and installed and spectacular. The school zone signs, considering we have those nice sidewalks, it's great to see that there's signage there, reminding people that there's young kids walking there all the time, as are other people. But thank you so much.
Yep, and Ford and Prindle are also 2 of the hot spots for the speeding violations. So we've been up there tagging cars pretty regularly.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
All right.
All right.
I got a question, if it's okay, President. Chief, I was wondering if you heard anything on with the bus stop at the end of Gracie Lane?
I have sent over something to Mr. Tobacco, and we are working on a solution. So I will get back to you as soon as I can. Is this Mr. Genetti?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I'm sorry. I have you on 2 different places on my thing here.
I'm sorry.
I will get back to you as soon as I have a resolution.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And thank Joe for me.
I shall.
All right. You're off the hook finally. Next up, Superintendent of Schools, Dr. DeBacco.
Thank you, President Stewart and Aldermen and Alderwomen. 3 big things to share. Number 1, our emergent leaders. That trip, they are in Atlanta at this moment, visiting historical Black colleges and universities, also traveling the Civil Rights Tour, getting text message updates. But I appreciate the city and the people on this Zoom call. Everyone helped get our students there. Pretty momentous trip for them. 2 things I just want to update you on, something that I did send to the mayor, Kurt Miller, Sheila, and John. It's that in the State Department of Education, in their infinite wisdom, we get roughly about $10 million in grants. And normally we do a drawdown and we draw the money down and we pay whatever bill that comes from that grant. Starting next fiscal year, they want us to prepay and then reimburse with the grants. And I just don't understand how. I mean, we get about $10 million a year, 10 months of school. That's a municipality like us floating $1 million every month of school. The only thing I can say is I wanted to put on everyone's radar, let people know. Maybe that might be a great use of our non-lapsing account to help maybe float some of that money, us being fiscally responsible. I don't want to harm the district, the municipality in any way, but I just wanted to let the aldermen know about that. And the last thing is, I'm glad that people are finding Ansonia a wonderful place to move and live, and I think it's a great thing. But since January 1st, we've registered well over 100 students, new students to our school district. And that's great. And I love that people find Ansonia inviting place and they want to make it their home. But by the end of this year, we'll have, I think, 12.5% new students coming in. Most recently, we saw a large uptick from Bridgeport. I'm sure it's probably a result of 500 families being displaced in a housing project. We most recently got 6 new students, all of them outplaced, $100,000 each, $600,000 of special ed costs, never budgeted, just because we never knew that they were coming. We are seeing a lot of movement into Ansonia, and a lot from pockets of lower socioeconomic status than us, and also coming in with greater need. By greater need, I'm talking about ELL, 504, and special ed students. And I was going to ask Bobby Tarr to see if I know she's in Shelton. Are you seeing some of the same things? Because I don't want to feel like I'm ringing the bell over here. I'm the only one, but it's something that we're facing, and it's coming. And I don't know what we could do. And I wanted to bring it to everyone's attention because it's getting overwhelming.
Yeah, Dr. DeBacco, we're seeing the same upsurgent in Shelton in the last couple of months. And again, same situation. A lot of the students coming in are already outplaced, and we have to foot that bill. And I know I just met with Bobby Lisi, and I know he probably filled you in, but we're working on some other alternatives, but it's going to be tough.
It is. It's going to be one of those hard candy Christmases, just because we're getting a lot of people moving in with greater and greater need. So I just wanted to share that. Usually always very positive. I mean, we have a great trip going on. I just want to let everyone know also graduation is expected to be the 10th of June at Nolan Field at 9 a.m. But I just did want to let everyone know that those things are on the horizon. The State Department of Ed doesn't fail by letting me down, and not just us, every municipality down. I don't know how municipalities are going to prepay and fund a lot of grants. And lastly, the student movement is something of getting. I mean, my special ed director, she's done a phenomenal job of holding the line for us. We've cut that budget. We've brought kids back. It's just getting when they're moving in and they're coming already outplaced, we own it the minute they move in. So it's tough. Financially. I mean, I saw $600,000 on my ledger that never existed prior. So I just wanted to share those things, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Any
Josh,
questions? Yeah.
I have a quick question for Dr. DeBacco. Superintendent, I'm sorry about the undue hardship that the state is placing on the especially the alliance communities, and just tying your hands in terms of cash flow. I think it's awful. Is there anything that we can do, that this board can do, that the mayor can do to support you in terms of, I guess, having a voice at the state, or whatever the case may be, putting a resolution together? Not that, I'm not saying it's gonna move mountains, but if there's something we can do, please let us know.
I will. And the superintendents, just so you know, I mean, I have some fellow districts I called up, and I don't know what, like, for example, Bridgeport's going to do, New Haven's going to do, what they're going to, there's a lot of alliance communities that are strapped. And how do you float 25, 50, $100 million? And the answer is you can't, especially when I know for a lot of our grants, October 1st, they need our student count come October 1st. We really don't get our real funding till like November. And a lot of municipalities really don't get their monies till that November time. So what do we do? July, August, September. I mean, you're floating a lot of money until our grants really start to kick in. And it's an undue to, and I can't believe, like CCM, and I can't believe a lot of these municipalities aren't losing their minds as well, because this is something that was never talked to superintendents about, was never talked to CASBO, which is the business managers or the business people. I'm sure they would all said, there's no way, because that kind of cash flow presents a tremendous problem. So going back to it, Sheila, if anyone ever, helped make some more noise, it couldn't hurt. But it seems like they want to play with as much interest as they can on the state side and hold our money as long as they can.
Yep,
That's what it
right.
appears.
Same holds true for grants, Superintendent. I'm sorry, hopefully our legislators will pay attention.
And Mr. President, if I could jump in as well too. And again, this highlights the importance of having staffs that work together, as well as the city and the Board of Education do, particularly on the finance side. As Dr. DeBacco said, he let us know right away as soon as he found out. I was able to bring this to the CCM Executive Board last week. So it's something that is now on their radar that they didn't know about. But more importantly, we've been able to proactively start looking at ways to combat this. I've already been in touch with our financial advisor, our bond underwriter, and our bond counsel about looking at some different opportunities that may be available to us, because while the money is definitely going to be a challenge, and floating this amount of money could be very problemsome, this is going to put a tremendous stress on the Board of Education's finance staff, because if they're going to need to be putting in requests for reimbursements weekly, bi-weekly, however often they're going to be able to do it, that's just extra work piled on top of these folks that they haven't had in the past. So for the state of Connecticut that's sitting there with a record surplus, the fact that they're squeezing towns and cities, particularly the distressed municipalities like this, is absolutely ridiculous. And the only reason they're doing this is so they can hold on to this money longer,
right,
at a higher interest rate, to try to bring more revenue into the state of Connecticut. Now, normally I would applaud them for that, but this money that the towns and cities are not going to see. So this is yet again another unfunded mandate that they are pushing down to the towns and cities. And to echo both Dr. DeBacco and Sheila's comments, it's absolutely ridiculous that we have to do that. But again, on a positive note, and I want to stress this again, the fact that there is such a strong relationship between the Board of Education and the city, fostered by the mayor and fostered by Dr. DeBacco, I think we're very far out ahead of this. And I think we're going to be able to put some things in place that hopefully will allow us to combat this and hopefully get over the humps and not cause us any problems. But it is something that we're going to need to watch very closely. And again, we should not even be in this position. But again, unfortunately, because the state of Connecticut doesn't care about towns and cities, particularly the distressed municipalities, this is what we have to deal with.
So Kurt, the cost of funds that are coming, because anytime you talk about float, there's cost of funds involved in that. That sounds like it's something, especially if we're looking at borrowing to potentially cover that, even in a short-term aspect, there's a cost that comes with that. Even if it's utilizing cash flow that the city has, that's going to, I guess, decrease funds that we're essentially earning interest on. So there's a cost that's associated with this. So while the state is quote unquote earning the interest, it's costing all these other towns that need to incur the cost of funds around that.
That's correct. In the, I guess, the best case scenario, we're just using our own fund balance to do that, but it's cash that we're putting out that is not sitting in the accounts. And if you look at our revenue lines this year, our revenue on our fund balance investments is well above budget, which is certainly a good thing. That's something that's going to hamper us next year. If we have to go out and get some type of notes, they technically don't have a GAN or a grant anticipation note per se. But if you look at bond anticipation notes, which would be a similar thing, you're looking right now at an interest rate in the neighborhood of 3%. Hopefully we don't have to do that, or hopefully we don't have to use that. But, to Dr. DeBacco's point, if we had to do something for 10 million at 3%, you're talking 30 grand. So it's something just to keep in mind. Or excuse me, 300 grand. Good Lord. That's bad math, sorry.
Joe, I wanted to go back to your comments on the influx of high need students. I remember researching this during the regionalization study, and if I'm correct, I think Ansonia was around 70% high needs. And of course, the definition of high needs is special ed, English language learners, and those students who are low income based on the free lunch proxy. I believe Ansonia was around 70% and Derby was somewhere in the area of 72%, just slightly higher, both unusually high to begin with, among the highest in the state. This impacts our city in every way possible. I'm assuming the lower wards are more impacted by this, given the availability of lower income rentals in those areas. I'm wondering in your next report, if you might update those percentages based upon what has happened in the last 2 years, and any suggestions you might have, where this board could be of assistance. For example, how can this be impacted through housing policy? Do we need a moratorium on conversion of single-family homes to multifamily homes? What are other communities doing so that they do not become the ready magnets for overwhelming need? Because it does overwhelm everyone, and it impacts every single child in the school system, and it becomes a less attractive place for the middle class to buy a home and to send their children to public schools. So if you could update that, and any thoughts that you or the Board of Education might have where this board could be helpful. I think this is a big issue that we all need to work together on.
Not a problem, Dr. Adamowski. And one thing I think we do need to remember, it's close to at least 50% or a little bit more of our housing stock is rental properties here in Ansonia.
Yeah.
So as long that number alone is alarming. That number of 50% of your housing stock.
Yep.
And that's the number we have to address, because if people were able to establish themselves and actually build roots or develop roots here in the community, they stay here in the community. So
Yeah.
I always wish there was ways that we could help people start to purchase properties, and so they actually stay here and make Ansonia their home, not just a layover or a destination spot for some
Yep.
time.
And it may be possible to impact that through incentives for home ownership and other governmental means. So again, if you could give this a little bit of thought, and I think it behooves us all to give thought to this in terms of how we do something that does not just keep increasing the percentage of high need students.
Will do.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for Dr. DeBacco while he's on the stand? All right. Thank you all for your comments and this information. This is very important. All right. So ends our public official session. We'll move on to committee reports. Finance Committee.
I'd like to make a motion to pay all bills if deemed correct.
Second.
Motion by Mamone, second by Not, to pay all bills if deemed correct. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Our motion carries unanimously. Any other committee or subcommittee reports anyone wants to highlight? Got a few in your packet. I do want to again thank all those departments that do submit those reports. They don't go unnoticed. They do get read. So I appreciate that. All right, so moving on, we have the vote recommendations from the last meeting.
Motion to accept.
Motion to accept by Mamone. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Tar. Any questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, motion carries. Also in your packet, the tax collector report from March 2023.
Motion to accept the report. The refunds are separate.
Well, just the tax collector report. Tony Mamone with the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Not. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? All right, unanimous. And then the request for refunds. It's in the amount of $1,467.02, if deemed correct.
Motion to accept as noted.
Second.
So by Mamone, second by Tar. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion carries unanimously again. There was no land unit use report, although it was on the agenda. There was none in the packet, so we'll skip that. There was no accidents and claims this month. No communications, no resignations, and the one resolution that was brought up by Sheila earlier, resolution number 1. This is regarding the state of Connecticut historic preservation for the Ansonia Opera House. This is to apply for a grant in the amount of $20,000, and that she said the first step would be the resolution being approved by us. Anything to add to that, Sheila?
No, I mean, it's there's a small match, which is a 10% match on the city side, the local side. And it is a grant for a feasibility study to tell us, you know, what order in which to address the issues with the Opera House.
Okay. And the wording of the resolution is included on your packet. I won't read that out loud, but any,
Who's paying the 2,000? Us or the owners?
We are hoping to we're hoping for a combination of fundraising, some from the city, and I believe the owner has put some, you know, has made some improvements to the Opera House. So although that doesn't count, it does count in terms of, you know, moving us along.
and there has been, as you noted, there has been some fundraising on that front, but
Good
What's in that
question.
account?
Good question, Bobby.
And remember, when we talk about the project now, we understand that this is going to overall count towards mitigation. So, you know, I may not have, it's sort of a new concept, but essentially the state is saying, you're knocking down buildings at SHW, so you owe them 100,000 of your own money put into another historic site. Now, on one hand, you could say, what are you talking about? You're bringing down some dilapidated buildings. The historic value is really, I mean, is that even significant given the lack, you know, of jobs and what we're going to do there? But believe, you know, but the state does require that. So the idea that we have a viable project here to invest into that could count towards that, that's amazing. That's allowing us basically to move on copper and brass. So there's a value added that we never thought would be really tied to this project.
Can we retro that 100,000 to other projects we've done in the past?
Yeah.
John Paul?
No, they need to approve the project. So
Oh.
we brought them down specifically to the Opera House.
Yeah.
SHPO went through it and we were able to basically say, look, you know, the exterior alone is going to be a project which is going to cost at least $100,000. And it really could show a wonderful commitment to the city in historic renovations and restoration. And it's something that definitely SHPO could be proud of helping out on, right? They're not only interested in having this property count to our mitigation, they're also interested in helping us do it and helping us access the funds that we need to do the exterior and maybe even move into the interior. So it's a great way that these two projects have intersected. So again, I wanted to say this just because, you know, a small amount like that in the grand scheme of things, now it's doing more than just helping this project. It's actually now helping solidify an arrangement that we have with the demolition project at SHW.
Wait, go back for a minute. If we choose, let's say that we don't want to put any money into that, then we owe someone $100,000 is what you're saying?
Yeah, you're going to have to find another project to put at least $100,000 into that's historic and that qualifies with SHPO.
You're not saying we have to put $100,000 of the city's money into the Opera House?
you're gonna need to put $100,000 of the city's money into historic renovation.
But
Oh,
Bobby,
let's
so that
back up.
the plan is that the investment in SHW with
pay
the
that.
tenants that are already interested in going in will generate the revenue to put back into the Opera House. We are not intending the the city of Ansonia to be paying out $100,000.
That was my question, because that's what we
Yeah,
talked
there's-
about.
There's ways to defray it. Yeah, there's ways to
Yeah.
ultimately defray it, but the obligation does rest with the city. So of course, there's gonna be an amazing amount of revenue generating opportunities to do it, but basically it is the price, right? Mitigation. They see it as lessening the impact of us taking down those horribly dilapidated and contaminated buildings. You know, it's what the
Mhm.
state requires.
All right, so did that answer those questions? For you, Bobby?
I don't know. Well, I guess we'll see. I mean, I thought the intent was for us to not have to pay any monies from the city to this project when we all agreed to take on this project with the owner. That was the initial presentation to us. So that has changed.
Yeah, no, Bobby, it's not changed. The intent is the same. We intend to raise money to secure funds through grants and to offset costs, as John mentioned. The intent is not for the city to, hand over money to fix a private owner's property. The
Right.
intent is to secure the funding through grants, through, through investment in other properties. So there are ways to do that so it doesn't hit our purse strings. But just to be clear, this resolution is simply for a feasibility study, and the match is $4,000. And we have some of it raised through fundraising. Anthony Mullen has done with others on the committee. And we have some set aside for professional services that I use. I know it's city money, but
What happened to the windows? I thought we were
It'll
starting with
it'll
windows.
get
I
us
mean,
a
I'm
feasibility.
again, it just isn't what it was initially proposed to be. That's okay.
Can
No,
I
I-
ask
I-
a question?
Sure.
Didn't we sell a small portion, maybe a quarter to a half an acre on that along North Main Street and Liberty
Good memory,
Street?
Bobby. Good memory.
A power generation
Yep.
plant. Can we, that money and put it towards what you're looking to do now?
It's a possibility. That's a question for, it's a discussion for finance and the mayor and John and, but yes, absolutely. That's the intent. There is money coming in, hopefully from the fuel cell people that want to rent a half acre. And that's also a good, source of income for this project.
All right, so we have the resolution, which is to hopefully garner a grant for a feasibility study. What do we want to do with it?
So this is gonna come back, so the 500,000, 100,000 backing it, that's gonna come back for a second resolution, I believe. Is that fair?
Tony, are you talking about, the 500,000 is a flat out grant for SHW. This is simply a $24,000 feasibility study. 20 of it is grant funded and 4 is the match. And that's
Okay.
what this resolution is for.
So this feasibility study kind of walks us into that $100,000 investment John was mentioning?
It does, it walks us into that. It also taps into more funding, more historic preservation funding.
And does that secondary grant, does that come back through the board for approval?
Yeah, every grant, anything we're doing to make application for that facility will come back to this board.
Bobby, I hear what you're saying. This is for the feasibility, so I'm kind of curious to see what's behind this. So
Yeah, I'm with you, Tony. I understand what you're saying. I just,
the other piece I want to talk about a little bit more when that comes back around, because I'm just had, again, some of those same concerns that you had, but if there's no questions, I'll make a motion to accept this resolution as noted.
All right, motion to accept resolution number 1 by Mamone.
I'll second, but I also have a comment.
All right, second by King, and then, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. I understand the feasibility study and it's a match. Apparently this one's 20%. Normally it's 10, but you know, whatever we got to pay to get this rolling. The historic preservation part of it, 100,000, we have historic sites coming out our ears. So it doesn't necessarily going to have to 100 grand to the Opera House. It could be, you know, windows or sandblast or whatever. But we also across the street have the walkway between the new project that's working. That's actually historic. We have the 100 steps that need to be rehabbed for the last several decades. That would count. Our own city hall, our armory, several city-owned properties. So we have plenty of places to spread this out. So covering it like basically $100,000 like makeup fee for tearing something down, we don't have a problem finding places to do it. And we have plenty of good opportunities. I'd rather see, if we're going to spend 50, 100 grand, have it be something that people can see. So either the exterior of the building or walkways or something to City Hall or the Armory. We have options, so we're not locked in. That's my point. That's it.
Thanks, Dan.
this is locked in. This study is locked in, tied specifically to the Opera House, correct?
Right.
Right, okay.
But that part would just be going. Overall with the state, the $100,000 figure that we keep reverting to doesn't have to be to that one site.
It's,
Hear ya.
Alderman, it does need to be approved by SHPO. It's not that we can say.
Well,
hey,
yeah,
we did these
with SHPO,
historic
but we
things.
have other things we can throw in there.
They need to see the project, they need to accept the project, and they need to actually approve the work that's being done. And right now, we know that they like the Opera House project, that the Opera House project is acceptable. It's got to have an impact, and the Opera House is the kind of thing that makes that impact.
Is the owner splitting with us at least on this 4,000 that we have to come up with through fundraising, whatever? Is he paying 2 and we're paying 2?
You know, truthfully, we haven't asked, but we could always ask.
I mean, he's the owner.
Sure.
I'm just, go ahead, take your vote, take the vote.
No,
Sorry.
Oh, so we had the motion in a second. I forgot who it was already. I know Dan was the second. Do you have it, Trish? Okay. So all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I'll abstain.
I'll abstain also.
2 abstentions, Tar and Nut. All right, so motion carries. Thanks. Move on to appointments. They're in the mayor's letter. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 appointments. First one, Fair Housing Officer, 1-year term. And this is a motion to reappoint Anna Rodriguez, Republican of Pulaski Highway, term to expire 4/1/25.
Motion.
Motion by
Second.
Yaman, second by Tar. All in favor?
I have a question.
Yep.
It says 1 year. Why is the term like 3 years? 2 years. Sorry, my math is off.
Oh,
here.
yeah.
Yeah, you're right. We do this every year. I know. I'll check on that, the end term to see if that's. But we do renew this one every year for a year.
Okay.
All right. So with that noted, I'll check the date. But the nominee is the same. Somebody, Yaman made the.
I'll amend.
Oh, okay. Amended by Yaman. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Tar. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next one, we have one nominee for Inland Wetlands Enforcement Officer. Richard DiCarlo, Republican of 325 Olivia Street, Derby, as the Inland Wetlands Enforcement Officer.
I have two questions here.
Sure.
Does this have any conflict with the current blight responsibilities?
Trying to think who would answer that. John? Is there any conflict with?
John, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry, guys. Does it conflict with?
Blight officer role in any way?
Mayor, blight officer has general enforcement duties, but it overlaps and has always overlapped with other enforcement functions, so no.
Okay.
We're missing a term on this too, Josh.
There's no, oh, right.
There's no term.
Judge, following up on Alderman Mamon's question, what are the hours worked in the blight officer's position?
Blight officer or in the wetlands?
No, well, starting with the blight officer, I was under the impression that was a full-time job. Apparently it's not.
So the blight officer has been part-time. It's a part-time role, and your blight officer is mainly concerned with violations of the blight code. He also pitches in with other code violations, working in connection with our chief land use officer, Rhonda Perini. The inland wetlands enforcement is more specifically related to issues of inland wetlands and doesn't have anything to do really with blight, has just to do with our sensitivity to wetlands areas and whether they are properly developed or not.
So is it 20 hours a week for the blight work?
19 and a half is part-time.
Okay. And then how many hours go with the inland wetlands role?
That tends to be an as-needed position rather than a regular part-time or full-time role.
And how is that paid? Is that paid when a person works, or is that like a stipend that?
I believe that's a stipend, technically a stipended position in the budget. Kurt could go a little further into how it's administered, but essentially, I mean, a stipend is basically a smaller salary.
Yeah, we budgeted out for 19 and a half hours a week at a set hourly rate. And then he puts in the hours as he uses them.
So it's a de facto, so it's not quite like your normal part-time position. It's budgeted for that, but it's an inland wetland officer is not working to the same capacity as a blight officer that has a regular beat in the wetlands, is only going out there when an issue comes up, an issue arises, and it appears that a violation of the inland wetlands regulations has been committed.
Do the two budgeted sets of 19 and a half push this into a full-time position?
It's just one 19 and a half hour pool each week that's used for the two.
So Kirk, correct me if I'm wrong, the hours for this position, for this individual are capped at 19 and a half.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
For the inlands wetlands or for the blight? Or for both?
Both.
So this person, if they're in both positions, they can work 38 or 39 hours a week.
No, 19 and a half.
19 and a half.
No, it's so they're able to kind of, as long as they're staying within 19 and a half hours, able to crisscross those responsibilities of blight and inland wetlands. Remember,
And they're
inland
not spending
wetlands,
19 and a half hours on blight if they're doing the other stuff like Steve said.
there's a lot of crossover, right? Where blight intersects within the wetlands. So
my
it's
goodness.
more of an efficiency, I would say.
John, I have two questions if everybody else is done. First, is there any either statutory or municipal restriction in terms of it must be an Ansonia resident?
For the
Oh.
inland blight enforcement?
Yes.
No,
Okay, not for inland wetlands?
not
specifically?
not for either.
Okay, and two, is there any training that Rich will have to undergo in order to do the inland wetlands enforcement?
we send our land use staff to the regular, and you've been a part of those training seminars as
Yeah.
well, the regular land use seminars. Apart from that, it's really working under the guidance of both Rhonda and of course, you know, the Inland Wetlands Commission to be, you know, making sure that you're adhering to the regulations.
Right, but there's, okay, I just want to make sure there's no specific enforcement.
No
training
certification or no,
Okay.
unlike, and Alderman Yalman is right to point out, you know, for those that don't know, certain enforcement positions, building official, for example, you know, it does require, zoning officer requires a certification
Right,
before you act in that role, but that is not the case with these roles.
okay. Thank you.
So with this position, with inland wetlands, basically, I think everyone's missing the point is there's a stipend, it's a salary. It's provided regardless of hours or whether or
No,
not
it's
they have
not.
anything to do.
This is a stipend it's budgeted, but it's being provided based on your hourly reporting. So you're not getting over 19 and a half. No matter what you.
So
know.
is there an hourly rate or is it a stipend? Because if it's an hourly rate, it's a job, there's a payment, hours would be tracked, or is it a salaried position / stipend to provide those services?
From what I'm
And like our
understanding
tree
is that
warden,
there's a
It's an
budget
hourly
that's
rate.
drawn from.
That we budget for 19 and a half hours. And the person hands in a timesheet and tells us the number of hours that he works.
oh, okay. Well, what's the pay rate then?
Off the top of my head, I don't have it in front of me.
All
It's all-
right, so
it's
for
all-
the inland
$20 an
wetlands
hour?
investigation for that, we don't know, we're gonna vote on it, but we don't know how much or what we're paying for that position.
It's 19 or $20 an hour. I just don't know the exact number in
So
front
it's
of me.
about $20 an hour based on what they do. So that's an hourly position, it's not a stipend. It's an
Correct.
employee who holds in two hourly positions. I just want to make sure that if they overlap with the work, that they don't become a full-time employee.
They cannot become a full-time employee because it's only budgeted in total for 19 and a half hours a week.
They're
Okay,
not going to ever
between the two-
work more than 19 and a half hours a
Doing
week.
two different jobs though, together, can we like legally separate those as if
The
they
Inland
don't
Wetlands
actually
officer has
do two
never
jobs?
truly been a real part-time or full-time job. It's just you're assigned to go check out issues
Right.
involving inland wetlands, usually involving a proposal that comes to planning and zoning. Sometimes they're rarely, but sometimes there's an issue where someone says, hey, did you locate, an addition on wetlands in your backyard? In which case, I guess like blight, you'd be going out there to inspect. But usually this is happening during a proposal, a development that's occurring, and you want to make sure that the proposed development is not pushing into the wetlands. But of course, the whole commission is involved. It's you're using this staff member to be reporting back to the commission when the commission is not available. But in no case would this individual be working beyond 19.5 hours. And so there would be no concern that they would be considered in any way to be a full-time employee. It's just a designation. It's a designation.
Okay.
Historically,
Well, I just wanted to clear that up because it comes up in the future.
Yeah.
historically, has our blight officer also been the inland wetlands officer as well, I think, correct? Historically?
He's been covering that position for well over a year this way, yes.
And there has been overlap in the past, to my knowledge, Josh.
Yeah,
Correct.
that was my,
This is nothing that's new, so,
No. And in other communities, it's the same way.
correct.
thanks, Joe. All right, so do we have any information on the term expiration? That's the only one that doesn't have a term listed.
It's not really an appointment, Josh. You're hiring an employee, so there really is no term to it.
That's what I was thinking is probably why it was in there is as needed until because replaced, right?
We pass on this.
What do you guys want to do?
Would a better approach be to just change the job description of the blight officer to include these people?
Inland wetlands.
Yeah,
He certainly could. I mean, he certainly could. It's, again, like I say, it's more of a designation than it is anything new. You're not hiring a new person. You're just allowing him to function in that capacity, have that title when he goes to the Inland Wetlands Board.
Well, it is a
I like
job, but
that
if we
idea.
pay somebody, it's a job.
Right. It should just be an included duty of the blight officer. That makes it cleaner. And it's not that he's holding two different jobs, but it's just a duty that falls under the blight position for the same 19.5 hours. This way, whatever he's working on, it falls under both. Correct?
Yeah.
Because he's not putting in any more time than 19.5.
Listen, it's more of a, it's a case of the regulations say an inland wetlands enforcement officer can ask people or order people to do certain things. So we need to designate an inland wetlands officer so that person could have their name on the paper that goes out to make those orders. And so I believe what the land use department was trying to do here was make Rich that person. So we have a person to investigate and make those orders, where right now there is no person. So it's not the intention to create a new office, to create a new employee, bring in a new employee, but to put Mr. DiCarlo into that position so he's empowered to be the enforcement officer under the regulations. But you're right. I suppose if you just, if you try to, I guess, change that title so it's not the blight enforcement officer, but rather a code enforcement officer, then we could very easily marry all of these enforcement mechanisms that he's able to do that don't require those extra certifications into one position.
I have Rhonda on the line if you need clarification. I don't even.
I
Do you
like
need-
Bob's idea, but what happens? What's his experience and expertise in the inland wetlands field when we have to go to court for something? Is he just gonna fall apart? His theories.
Certified to be inland wetlands. He took this class and got certified.
Okay,
Correct, he's certified.
that's fine. I didn't know that.
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve by Yaman. We have a second. Radio silence.
I think that needs more research.
We don't have a second, so
Okay.
Table
I
it.
don't think we need to do it in this way, like this. I mean, he's already acting in the capacity. I think he doesn't need to be appointed necessarily by this board to the role. It sounds like he's already doing the work, but
yeah, I mean, multiple people have said that these jobs intersect and have intersected historically, but okay. So what's next? No action?
So Rhonda, can you kind of
No action.
explain to them why this is
I guess
not-
I recommend no action, and at the next meeting, land use department would be present to explain their proposal.
okay, I'll withdraw.
Okay, no action. All right, so we have two other appointments, both 3-year terms. Water Pollution Control Authority. First nominee, Brian Lasky, Republican, 162 Hull Street, Ansonia, term expiring 12/31/26.
Motion.
Motion
Second.
second by Not. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, second nominee, Anthony Levinsky, Republican, 3 Hoinski Way, also Ansonia, term expiring 1/31/26.
Motion to accept.
Motion by Mamone. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Tar. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? All right. We have, that's the end of the appointments.
You have one more, Josh.
I got one more. Emily, on the next page, Josh.
Emily Quinn for zoning.
Hey, I didn't even turn it over. My bad. Zoning Board of Appeals, a 5-year term. Doesn't seem to make
And
sense
that's the wrong date too for 5 years.
unless it's a continuation. Emily Quinn, unaffiliated, alternate, 13 Holbrook Street. Who made this?
I'll make a motion. I think she's filling out her father's term.
Yeah, I believe she's filling out her father's term.
It's okay.
Yeah,
so
Dennis Quinn.
The original
Yeah,
term-
he's
it's not
deceased,
a
yeah.
new 5-year term. It's completing that term. So the term does expire 12/31/24, 13 Holbrook Street. And
I'll
someone made
make that motion, Josh.
by
Second.
second by, who was that?
Mamone.
Um,
Mamone.
Perfect.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstaining? Thanks for keeping me on task. I didn't even turn the page over. All right, we have no ordinance this month. New business, we had one thing that came. New business number one, this was a letter from the state of Connecticut Department of Revenue Services. The NAA program. Sheila, can you briefly explain this? Or not?
She's muted.
She's muted.
Sheila, you're muted.
I'm texting her.
I'm sorry, guys. I stepped away. What are we at on?
New business number one, the letter from Mark Boughton from the Department of Revenue Services. This is the NAA. Can you just
Yeah, very quickly. So this program comes out every year. It's an opportunity for municipal departments, for nonprofits, anyone who has a project that they need a little extra funding for. What it does is it entices businesses to contribute to the project. They donate it. They basically get, I think it's one for one tax abatement or tax. It's failing me. The words are failing me. Anyway, one for one on their investment. So if a project's worth $50,000, they get $50,000 in tax credits to be used. So for companies up to $150,000. So for example, if the Nature Center wants to build another case for snakes or whatever, they can complete this form, put their project down. We send it to the state to be approved. If it's approved, the next step is to do some marketing and some, searching for donors type thing. But it's actually something for the Opera House as well. Like we can encourage people to donate to the Opera House. So companies that are looking for tax write-offs, finally the word came to me, can participate in this program. It's a good program. It helps out if we can get the donations in. So just asking I need a resolution I believe, to participate in the program.
Okay, but this is not a resolution then. So are we just talking about this and then we'll have a resolution next month, or how's that work?
You need a resolution, Sheila, or you just need authority?
Oh, I guess I just need authority. Thanks, Joe. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Motion to give authority to apply.
Thanks.
Second.
Thanks, Joe. All right, so motion by Yaman, second by Tar, to give authority to the city. Sounds like a good idea. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion carries.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
To adjourn.
Let's see, no old business and no executive session, so.
He really is Chicago. It really is.
I've been empowered by Mr. Rivers. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Mamone. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Yaman. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Have a
you.
great night.
You too.
Better.